Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
We're talking about something today that I know that you can relate to. Have you ever said this to yourself? I don't really have time for that. I don't have the time. Well, how much time is enough? And why don't you have time to do the things that you really want to or should be doing? We're going to look at that and so much more, how to try and balance out your life. He is an inspirational speaker, a success consultant, a life coach, best-selling author, and he is back with us. And he's got time today to talk. He's Dr. Bary Fleet. Bary, welcome. How are you?
I'm well, Steve. How about yourself?
Super. Yeah, really good. Really, really excited to talk about this because it is so relatable for all of us. We all say the same thing, that we don't have time for certain things. And we all have the same amount of time. So why are some of us, have more time than others? And where's that time going?
Yeah, where's that time going is a great question. And I think that one of the structures that I offer my clients is to really catalog your time in 15, ideally in 15-minute blocks, but at least in 30-minute blocks. Write down, how did I spend that 30 minutes? How did I spend that from that half hour from 8 in the morning till 8:30, or from 8:30 to 9, or 9 to 9:30? And become conscious of where the time is going. I'm sure you're familiar with the app that Steve Jobs created, that will, at the end of the day, or at a certain point, it'll tell you how much time you've spent on social media. There'll be a pop-up window on your phone that says how much time you've spent, because he was realizing that the phone is just a big suck of time. We're texting, we're reading emails, we're TikToking, we're whatever, and it just becomes a black hole. And we spend way more time than we think we do. And then we get to the end of the day and say, where did the day go?
Yes. And isn't it interesting that all these devices, technology was essentially invented to save you time, but it went just the other way, where it is a time suck. So looking at that, and these are the first things that pop in my head, and all I can do is share my situation, and maybe it's relatable to others, related to what you're talking about in terms of time. But in my current journey, working more, need to, for obvious different reasons, I never have enough time to even thoughts, like ideas that I think will be very successful, to execute them. And I could say, you know what? I'm going to spend time on the weekend. I'm going to take that time. But then the other half of me says, no, you need to take you time. And then, I might have a random half hour in the day, maybe two here and there. But instead of digging into certain projects or trying to move some work forward to have less on the back end, sometimes I just say, I'm going outside. I need it. I'm going to go to drive to Starbucks. It's less than a mile away, get a cup of coffee, get some fresh air, come back in and resume the day without taking that half hour, which I could have done to knock some things out of the way. What are your thoughts on the balance there? Because I try to wrestle with that, and great idea to account for everything that you do. Which by the way, is going to take time.
But not as much as you think.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Honestly, Steve, my first thought was, why don't you walk to Starbucks? It's less than a mile away.
Because it's going to take more time.
Yeah.
Like, seriously. I guess I should try that. That's a really great thought.
But we get caught up. So what I'm sure of is that if you walk that 3/4 mile, whatever it is, you would feel more connected to the world.
Agreed.
And you would allow your creative brain to work.
I agree. That's a great thought.
But what happens to us is we're caught in the trap of efficiency.
Yeah.
And we're looking for ways that we can get more done in the time that we have.
Yep.
And I think we're asking the wrong question. I think the real question is what's gonna make me a better human being? What's gonna make me a overall a happier person? What's gonna allow me to enjoy my life instead of feel like I'm trapped on this treadmill with this endless list of things that I need to be doing. And I think it's important to really look at the needs and do we really need to, or is there something driving us that says this is what I should be doing?
It's that. I believe it's that. You have this perception that, and maybe it's our culture, society, but it's like, I gotta keep going. I got a couple of minutes left. Let me get that out of the way. Let me do that. Because in your mind, you think when you get them out of the way, you'll have more time to maybe do something that you enjoy. So you keep going. It's like running a race. I'm going to get to the end. I'm going to get to the end. I'm going to do. When I get to the end, there's going to be more time for me. You never get to the end.
No, that's the lie. And I think the idea of I think I've shared with you that I spent 40 years as a parish minister, and one of my sayings was things aren't true because they're in the Bible. They're in the Bible because they're true. And that the idea of a Sabbath day, when you look at I don't know if we talked about this last week or not, but the blue zones where people live longest, healthiest, and one of the things is they take time every week to do nothing. There's a day set aside just to eat, to cook, to visit, to be. No work gets done. And they live longer and are happier. But we've got a cultural myth that says, no. Happiness comes from doing more, getting more, earning more.
Yeah, it's so true.
And somewhere, I think we need to stop, this word need, it's so common. I need this, I need that, I need that. Really, you don't. We don't. I know that I live in a small bubble and a very privileged bubble, but I don't personally know. I'll say it differently. I know very few people that don't have what they need. They don't have what they want, but they really do. We really do have what we need.
Yeah.
I've got a roof over my head. I've got food to eat, a variety of healthy foods to eat, clean water to drink. What do I need? Stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a misperception because most of us doing okay, doing all right. Could we, it's also, you look at, people say, oh, well, I want to win the lottery. I've had 1 million, 2, 5, whatever. How great would that be? No. Do you really, really need that? Would it be nice to have? Hey, yeah. Do you really need it? The answer is no. And if you look at people that have won the lottery, majority of them, their lives are forever ruined. They have less now than when they started before winning the lottery. And you can look it up. I'm talking majority, probably 85% of those people that won big.
Their lives are more miserable. 5 years later, their lives are more miserable than they were before that. But we don't want to look at that. We don't want to accept that truth.
Yeah.
Because if we accepted that, we might have to get off the treadmill, so to speak.
But it's also, a lot of us think, well, if I want it, it'd be different.
Right.
I'd be different because I would do this and I would do that and I would give some to charity and blah, 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 blah. No, wind up the same thing. It goes back. It was a huge song, pop song / dance song that came out in the 90s and was called More Money, More Problems. It says it right. And if I may, I got the lyrics here to a song by Pink Floyd called Time.
Okay.
And the lyrics go, and you run to catch up with the sun, but it's sinking, racing around to come up behind you again. The sun isn't the same in a relative way, but you're older, shorter of breath, and one day closer to death. And basically, it goes on to say every year is getting shorter. Never seem to find the time. And basically, that's it. It's like you're just gonna keep racing around, racing around. But the part of that whole song that stands out for me and has since I heard it from day one, decades ago, one day closer to death. When you look at it that way, all the stuff that we're doing, what does it even matter?
Yeah, yeah. Um, and that's the question. What does it matter? Um, what would happen if we just so we talk about trying to find time, right? And the time's already here. We don't have to find it. We just have to claim it.
Mm, yeah.
Um, we have to make time for things that are important, not things that we think should be important, but what
How do
are
you
important.
know? That's why I think a lot of us struggle with that, Barry. How do you know what is important? Because in our mind, we might say, well, knocking out that project or that section of work is important. We may think it is, but essentially it's not. Maybe walking to Starbucks so that you have just a moment and you're connected to nature is really what's important, but we don't see it.
We don't see it because I think we don't stop and look. Um, I, I, I don't remember now the statistics about the number of texts and emails that the average American handles every day. And I did read the average email is answered within 2 minutes.
Hmm.
What are people doing with their computers set up so that whatever they're doing, the email becomes more important than whatever it was I was looking for?
Yeah.
And what would happen, really, what would happen if I only checked my email twice a day? What would really change if I just dedicated um, a block of time? This is when I answer emails. Um, and I know some people that have their email, their tagline at the end says, "If this is really important, call me."
Yeah, exactly. But you know what? Nobody likes to talk on the phone anymore. It's the other problem or
Yeah, we have.
challenge.
Yeah, and most folks would rather text than talk. Um, and yet, when we have a problem, we want to talk to somebody. We don't want to go through a chat to get the problem solved. We want to talk to somebody. Um, but we and one of the frustrations is for me that those chat things are slow because who's ever on the other end of the helpline, they're helping two or three other people at the same time.
Absolutely.
Um, and I get frustrated. I get
I do too.
frustrated when I
Drives
when
me
I'm
crazy. Drives me crazy. Yeah. Whatever happened? What happened here? It was all right. Downsizing. I get that. People working from home. I get that. Sometimes it's a little bit slower, but it's just it is a waste of time. And you wind up doing other things while you're waiting for bing. Oh, they answered. All right, let me get back into that. And then you're waiting.
yeah.
And then what do you do? Are you still there? Are you around there? Yeah, very, very frustrating. But I want to go your point before about work emails. Other countries, I believe one of them is Belgium. It is illegal to send work emails on the weekend after a certain hour or
Yes.
in general. I can't recall what it was, but they passed a law about 5 years ago where don't do it. You're literally breaking the country's law.
Right. And I think that's a great illustration about how we have we have so intermingled work and home life
Mm,
that there's no clear boundary. And I understand the humanness of us. I can't go to work and not bring with me whatever was happening at home.
yep.
Um, and in some ways, I think it's inhuman to expect somebody to not do that. But I also think that there really was something to the factory where I go to work and I put in my 8 hour shift or whatever, and then I go home and I don't do anything related to my job.
Mm-hmm.
Still, I go back the next day, but it's designated time for work. And now and a lot of us, if we're not self-employed, we have side gigs that we keep going. Um, and so where where are the boundaries? Where are the lines when you say, nope, I'm done?
Well, what's interesting is I believe we sort of used to do that, sort of, but we were still, even before COVID, we're bringing some of our work home, or at least checking email, thinking about it, all that. And now the COVID kicked in. Now it's even more acceptable to bring it home. And the visual I got, and it's the craziest one ever. But you remember the Flintstones?
I do.
5 o'clock, 5 o'clock, they would pull the
The whistle
tail,
blows.
which was a bird, a pterodactyl. Fred Flintstone be sliding off. It was working in the quarry pit off the dinosaur's back. Get in his car, drives home. He's done. That's it.
Yeah, yeah.
Should be that way. And unless it's an emergency, at your job.
But who gets to decide what the emergency is?
Well, then there's that. Right.
But you're right. Um, but I think we have created a false sense of urgency about life.
I believe that's true, Barry. And I also feel that we are petrified of losing those jobs. And that's why I got to make sure. I got to make sure. So many people don't even take all their vacation time because they want to look more valuable. I'm here for you. But in
Right.
the end, it doesn't matter. In the end,
Right.
there's no job loyalty. In the end, you earned that vacation time. It's like money in the bank, and you just
Right.
threw it away if you don't use it.
Well, not only do you throw it away, you put it in the pockets of the rich guys.
And then there's that, right?
You're giving them a donation.
Exactly. Yeah. And what about all the things we used to do, have time for, like hobbies, right? Who does that anymore? Who really just, does something for pleasure? I can't think of any of my friends, unless they're retired, that they are doing, fun stuff that they want to do.
Yeah. I so in some of my previous life chapters, I did crewel embroidery, big projects. I did needlepoint. I did petty point. I
Mm.
I did stained glass windows. Now I don't have time for any of that. But the other thing that I noticed, because I was walking through a craft store the other day, they don't offer those kind of projects anymore. The only thing they offer are little quickie things that you can do in 15 or 20 minutes.
Wow.
But the bigger crewel embroidery projects, things like that, those kits, they don't exist.
Wow.
I can remember going into craft stores and being able to buy a kit to make a stained glass lamp. I wouldn't even know where to begin to look for something like that now. I'm sure you could go online and find it. But it used to be you just go in the store and look around and pick one up, because people have quit doing those kinds of things. Again,
Yeah.
because we don't have time. We tell ourselves we don't have time. And so for me, this is a plea to myself. I used to say when I was preaching every week, I used to say, I'm going to write the sermon for me. And if it benefits somebody else, that's great, but it's something I need to hear. And this is the time management thing.
Yeah, I'm glad you said those two words, because that's what I was marinating in my mind. And before we jump into time management, what you're saying about doing those crafty kind of things brought back a thought of paint parties. So people will go, a lot of women will go to a paint party.
Yep.
Fantastic. You have an artist showing you how to do it, but you're not doing it on your own. It's fine. You're doing it, which is great.
Right.
You're taking the time to do that. But what are you doing at the same time? You usually go with somebody or others, and it's a socialization thing, which is great too, but almost pathetic in a way, because we don't have time to socialize. So let
Right.
me do the craft thing. Let me socialize and have a glass of wine with everybody else. It's all good, but what does that demonstrate? That we
Right.
don't have the time to do both of those separately.
Right. And the other thing about that, and those paint parties are fun, And the social part of it is a real important ingredient.
Sure.
But I don't. Again, I personally don't know anybody that said that was so much fun. I'm going to go buy paints and do some stuff on my own.
You are 100% right. And you can't say because there was an artist leading me through it. There's a thing called YouTube.
Right.
There's what's that guy's name? Bob Ross. He became famous for that. Go look back. He'll even show you how to do it. It's all there. And yes, if you go to the craft store, you can find paint, you can find brushes, you can find canvas, whatever you need. It's all there. But we don't take the time. I do believe a lot of it comes back to time management. Do you feel the same way?
I do, and I think we need to start taking control of our time instead of allowing the world to set the agenda for how we spend our time.
Yeah.
And you're right about we have this fear that if I take all of my vacation time, then the boss is going to notice that and is going to find favoritism in the person that's slogging, doesn't take any vacation time and works extra hours.
Yep.
And I think there's something behind that of we don't have enough trust in the universe that I remember talking to an older gentleman who lived through the Depression. And he said, there was never a time when I couldn't find a job. It didn't always pay what I wanted it to, but there was always a job there for me if I wanted to work.
Yep. Yep. And I will be fully transparent and say every life is a lesson. But if I could do it over again, number one and number two thing that I would not worry about is the job. Because, if I left one on my own for whatever reason, financially had to leave it one for whatever, it all kind of worked out. And number two would be worrying about money. They're both connected.
Right.
Why did I ever worry about that? Because I was on the treadmill of what did I gave myself an ulcer because of that. Why did I worry about that? I know why, but it wasn't it all. Again, it's one of those things that eventually all works out. It may not be immediately exactly what you wanted it to be in terms of salary, but eventually you'll get where you need to be again. But I pinnacle point here, faith in the universe, faith in the universe.
Yes. And we might not end up where we intended to be, but it might be better.
Right.
I know I had a friend who she started working for this company when she was 18, and she was in her mid 30s, and she had been a part of the team that built the company from a 3-person company to a $1 billion company that was bought out by a European entity. And the first thing they did was say, we don't need you anymore. And she says, I made this, what became so valuable to you, and now you're saying you don't need me anymore. And she was devastated. And about 6 months later, I mean, they gave her a nice severance package, but about 6 months later, she found herself doing something totally different. And she said, Bary, they did me a favor, because had they not done that, I would have spent the rest of my life doing this without ever exploring other possibilities.
Yep. I won't go into detail. Similar situation in my point.
Okay.
And I was 17 when I started somewhere, almost 30 years. And it was a mutual departure, but it led to other things.
Yeah.
And I'll say it again, there is no loyalty anywhere. So here you are bending over backwards, beating yourself up, all of that. I'm sorry, but this is the reality. Nobody really cares. Nobody really cares.
My dad got his 40-year pin and his pink slip the same day.
Oh, man. And there you go. Yeah.
There's corporate loyalty.
There is none. I'm sorry. It's worse now than it ever was. We're talking about years ago in these instances, but we worry so much about it, and we're just not doing ourselves justice. We're not doing others justice either, because if you take some of that focus on, I just got to work even harder. If you didn't, you'd be a better person overall.
you would be a happier person overall.
And that, yeah, which would mean you're better for other people as well, and your family.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Better for yourself and better for others. But we've exchanged fast for pleasure. We've exchanged fast for healthy. We've given up our health in order to do more. We've given up our lives in order to do more, and we don't have a sense of who I am apart from the things I need to be doing, the projects.
Well, usually the adage is less is more. In this instance, more is less, because all the more you did, it's less of a better person you are, less of a fulfilling life. I hate to say it, but we're out of time.
That happens.
Yeah, it does. It does. Well, you know what? Out of time this time. Great thoughts here, and so paramount and beneficial to all of our lives. Wake up, hopefully for some. And this is just part of what you do when you coach others in terms of time management and putting people's lives in balance in place. How do we reach you, Bary?
My website, www.drdrbaryfleet.com, Bary with one R. Go to my website. There's a contact form there. You can email me. My phone number is there. You can text me. I'm not promising you I'll get back within 2 minutes.
but thank you for that.
But I promise you I'll get back to you. But yeah, I love to help people be more conscious about how they're living their lives.
Yeah.
So that their life is more full of more joy and pleasure instead of obligation and exhaustion.
Fantastic talk today.
Thanks so much.
Good stuff. I have to go because I'm going to walk to Starbucks now.
All right. I like it.
It's sunny out. Why not? All right. We'll catch up next time.
Okay.
Thanks, Bary. Take care. Bye. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.